Fantastic. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Good morning. Let's look at my audience today. Good morning, Clantonso. Good morning, Electronic. Good morning, Zonic. Good morning, Dr. Mac. Good morning, Hank Tester. Good morning, Zero Kex. Good morning, GV. Let's see. Good morning again, Zero Kex on Twitter. And whoever else will be joining us soon enough. You'll also be eligible for a good morning, up to 10 people every day. So I think the first thing to talk about today is we did fix autofocus. So I believe that our video quality today is drastically superior than it was yesterday. So that's already a huge upgrade. I think we're scaling this and improving this with leaps and bounds. I want to be a bit of a maverick today and kind of talk about good news, even though I know that the market as a whole, whether that's affected by macro or whether it's affected by the performance of Bitcoin, might lead you to believe that this is a problem. And I know that I harp a lot about game theory, but I think it's really important that I do, because if I don't think people are really going to understand how this kind of works. And when crypto behaves volatile, it's just really an indication of its own immaturity and the lack of understanding around it. Like, there's no real thinking involved, so there's really just feeling involved. Does that make sense? People don't do any thinking, they do feeling. And when the price of Bitcoin moves like this, I think what it's revealing is it's revealing like a deep-seated anxiety that exists within a lot of people, where they're not really sure whether at what point post-halvening we're going to be entering crypto summer, quote unquote. Now the macro trend of things like the Asian markets and the tech sector, I think, is absolutely spreading its negative emotion into the crypto market. They tend to say that crypto tends to trend with the tech sector, which is the most cyclical. And the tech sector, because of its valuation multiplier, is also the most volatile for obvious reasons. And I'm starting to notice there's something inherent to human nature where people don't understand technology, but they do understand how valuable it is. Like, they don't understand how things work, but they do understand that, like, technology changes the way we live. And the narratives around technology, I think, continue to show themselves to be even more important than the impact of technology itself. This is kind of a this is for better or for worse. People's lack of understanding about how Bitcoin works, generally speaking, something that is kind of commonly true about behavior of markets is the clustering of volatility. In fact, a guy named Benoit Mandelbrot wrote about this. He's actually the guy for my shirt here. This is the Mandelbrot set, if you guys are familiar with that. Mandelbrot wrote a book called The Misbehavior of Markets, and he talks about how volatility clusters, meaning if you're to simulate how a market actually behaves in real life, it doesn't just randomly go up and down. When it behaves sharply, it kind of increases the chance in close proximate windows of time that it will continue to behave sharply. Does that make sense? Like, most of the time, markets move sideways, but then all of a sudden they start moving sharply vertically, one way or another. And this, I think, has to do with emotional feedback feeding back into the market movement. Does that make sense? Like, people have a sensory, or should I say a visceral response to their sensory inputs, and this kind of enhances and reinforces the change. I think this is kind of baked into human nature because of the way that we existed tribally for thousands of years. When bad things would happen, they tended to spread around. So when a forest fire started, it tended to spread around. When somebody caught a disease, it tended to spread around. If somebody was sick in the village, very rarely was it just one person who was sick. Everybody worried about the contagiousness. And I think the misunderstanding of contagion in general is what leads to these type of market movements, if that makes sense. We now know the science behind contagiousness, but I think on a visceral level, on a instinctive level, we still kind of believe that it's magical and it can just spread for whatever reason. I think that people who don't consider themselves to be whales, they want to believe that the market is manipulated by whales. They want to believe that it's just like a large group of individual actors like manipulating the market. And oftentimes there are cases where that's revealed to be true, but most of the time it's actually just a bunch of disorganized and misinformed people reacting to each other reacting. So if you yell fire in a movie theater, this has nothing to do with, like a wealthy person, like choosing to get everybody to stampede. Does that make sense? Like people stampede because of instinct. And it's that stampeding instinct that causes the markets to move in this, in volatile matters. Because of Bitcoin's decentralized nature and the fact that there's so little understanding around it, you can expect that visceral behavior is going to outweigh actual logical and rational behavior. And that's why crypto moves the way it does. I think that this is not so much a problem as it is an opportunity, because if you can understand that crypto behaves this way, you can profit from it. You can profit from it. And the best way to understand how to profit from crypto is to become self-aware of your emotional state. The way that you feel about the markets, if you're in a reactive state, that's also going to be that way that most people feel about it. So right now, today, I want to say I saw Bitcoin at 52,000. Can I get a price check on Bitcoin? Oh, and actually, I should take a glance at general chat. 50K? Okay, so Bitcoin's already at 50K now, right? Oh, and there's no audio on Twitter. No audio on Twitter? Okay. Zero Kex, we are getting indication on our end that we do have audio on Twitter. Can anybody else test if there's audio on Twitter? There is audio on X. Okay. Thank you so much. Yeah, that's possible. We were possibly still muted when that happened. Okay. So the price of Bitcoin is now 50K. I was actually saying just a week or two ago that it's quite possible that we'll see Bitcoin back in the 50s before we see it in the 70s again. And yep, we were intentionally muted then. And to be clear, like there was a time not even that long ago where you would have been praying for 50K, where you would have literally been praying to see a number as high as 50K. And the fact of the matter is, as far as Bitcoin goes, if 50K is not agreeable to you, you need to learn how to stop following the herd and start how to move in the opposite direction of them. As far as like a general Bitcoin strategy goes, a strategy that I have now espoused since, I guess a few years now, at least 3 or 4 years, if not longer, is the time to buy Bitcoin is always when it's less than 2/3 of its all-time high. So right now, that's around like $46,000. Like the only time to ever buy Bitcoin is below 46,000, because that's the time when nobody wants it, right? So I was in fact advising people, over 100 people in a group that I was very exclusive about, that they should buy Bitcoin in a DCA strategy at all prices below 45,600, and a lot of them did. And some of them bought all the way down to 22,000 and below, all the way down to 18,000 and 16,000. And they continued to buy. And I told them that once we go above 46,000, you should stop buying. And every single one of those guys is at profit only because they forced themselves to go against the grain. They bought Bitcoin when nobody wanted it. And now that people see Bitcoin moving, you have a bunch of people who are, to borrow information from yesterday, they are showing up late to the party, and they're kind of they're tribe trading. That's what I'm going to describe it. They're tribe trading. They already see that the tribe is moving this direction, so they feel safe now, being one of the last penguins off the iceberg, if that makes sense. Well, when you're the last penguin off the iceberg, most of the good fish have already scattered. And what's going to happen to you from here is you're going to effectively be front run by everybody else who had more courage than you and had more cortisol tolerance than you. Human nature is really governed by our neurochemistry. You'll hear me talk about this thousands of times. And a neurohormone called cortisol is something you might be familiar with because it's associated with stress. Cortisol is a useful and extremely necessary component to human existence, but you need to be critical of when you're experiencing it and why you're experiencing it. Certain things stress us out and they don't need to stress us out. If you become self-aware of what stresses you out, you have the ability to consciously decide that it's not going to stress you out. This is the first step to, I think, making it in crypto, especially long term. You have to really decide that you're not stressed out about something that would probably stress out the average person. This is actually how you separate yourself from the tribe, and you stop being a tribe trader and you start being a tribe leader. I hope that makes sense to you guys. Let's see. Okay, yeah. Good morning, Javery. Good morning, Pega, or whoever I didn't say good morning to today. Let's see. Do we have... golly gee, I wonder. What is our viewer count right now? Do I even have the ability to see that? $54? Okay, very nice. So anyways, does anybody have any questions? And specifically, I want to say that somebody was complimenting Pyreswap, and they were saying that compared to the rest of the market, Pyreswap is actually taking less of a hit. And I agree, because what we're really trying to engender here with Pyreswap is like a community that can grasp fundamental analysis. Because if you can grasp fundamental analysis, you have the ability to literally break free from the matrix of stampeding after a bunch of people who are in an emotional panic. Does that make sense? I really don't think people understand how much of this small fulcrum that we're trying to leverage our DApp on changes the way that crypto works. We talk about Pyreswap as if it doesn't have crypto winter. And what we mean by that is that it can have big summer and it can have little summer. Crypto winter is great. I think crypto winter is great because crypto winter reveals what doesn't actually work. Does that make sense? Because if your stuff doesn't work in crypto winter, it also doesn't work in crypto summer. You can make anything rally. They did this to tulips back in the 16th century. They did it to Beanie Babies in the 90s. They did it to the .com stocks in the late 90s and early 2000s as well. And this doesn't, just because something is rallying, does not actually imply that it's a revolutionary anything, that it is actually of any importance. It just means that a whole bunch of people are buying it right now. In theory, the price of toilet paper went to the moon during COVID. But did anything really come of that? Yeah, it was just a whole bunch of people hoarding toilet paper because they flocked to safety, and their safety was apparently being able to take a shit, I guess. Yeah, this was one of the critical supplies that I think drove the COVID economy. Anyways, let's see. Does anybody else have any questions? I am seeing some notifications here. Oh yeah, and I appreciate. I'll hold that right there. For those of you who aren't already in our Pyreswap Discord, we are in fact trying to attract our Twitter follower base to our Discord user base. Our Discord, I think, is an amazing community that's sort of isolated by this constant FUD that you would normally see all over crypto Twitter or elsewhere in Twitter. The user base that has really invested the time and the commitment into understanding how the complete economy of Pyreswap works, they don't really lose faith in this project when the crypto market as a whole takes a downturn. Like, they completely understand what I mean about it being impervious to to dying from red candles and the fact that red candles don't make the product less functional. Right now, we're in the middle of a Genesis event, and we have an extremely aggressive expansion rate. This expansion rate arguably is going to inflate our token. We already know this. We did this on purpose because we want there to be deep liquidity, and we want there to be lots and lots of holders. So the people that are holding it, when Genesis is over, they stand to benefit even more. They stand to benefit even more in the downturn because they understand that an upturn is arguably tokenomically inevitable. I think that you'll notice that our user base's sentiment is the most consistent day by day. And I don't think that we have any serious investors that lose faith in this project just because Bitcoin happens to touch 50K. If the price of Bitcoin right now is causing you grief or stress, again, take this moment. I really plead this of you. I really beg this of you to become literate of when the last time you bought was and figure out if that was the correct entry. Because if you're buying when everybody else is buying, you're making the wrong decision. The reason that markets tend to behave the way they do is because all of the reward is in the position that has the most risk. I think Warren Buffett has a quote that says you need to learn to be greedy when others are fearful and fearful when others are greedy. And I think that this recent little tumble is I think exposing the anxiety that's tied to other markets and the economy as a whole. So there was just talk of recession. If you ask me, the globe has been in a recession since Q2 of 2022. So in my opinion, we've been in a recession for over 2 years already, seeing how we're in Q3 now of 2024. And if you don't feel that was the case, then it's possibly you were just being misled for 2 years by political optics. Markets can rally and they can crash within recessions, but overall, they talk about employment numbers and unemployment numbers, but I don't think that nearly drives the fact that the people getting employed right now are getting employed inside the largest inflation event in their lives. So even if everybody is employed, it's like they're all taking 20% pay cuts. And if that isn't a recession, I don't know what is. Good morning, Perception. And good morning, Alessio. Anyways, I hope that makes sense to you guys. On this particular Pyreswap show, I am going to attempt to play the Incarnation Witch Vault on screen share, which perhaps we don't need a screen share just yet. Yeah, we don't need to do it just yet, but maybe in about 5 minutes. I want to at least continue talking to everybody who might still be feeling cortisol. This notion that we might one day live in this utopia where we only ever feel dopamine and there is never any pain, that's not real life. That right there is a fantasy. Anybody who's kind of selling you that, they're appealing to your most visceral and childlike aspect of you. Does that make sense? Oh yeah. Please, if you're still watching, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and retweet, and repost. Yes, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. We should get that as like a pop-up banner that just like pops up at the on the bottom. I could make that. Yeah, we'll get that later. Anyways, yeah, we can have that pop up later. But yeah, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and specifically, I want to address how you're feeling if you're feeling cortisol right now. If you're feeling cortisol right now, it might be the time to admit that you don't understand how something works. And the only way that you're going to dispel the fact that you feel this cortisol in the future is by getting better at it. I want you guys to understand that when you were a child, you felt cortisol all the time about things like learning to walk. And the entire reason a baby is incentivized to learn to walk is because they figure out that they can reach more things if they learn how to stand. That is the entire aspect of it. Like, they don't care about being able to move faster. They don't care about, like, they just know that they're going to have access to more of the world if they learn to walk and they learn to stand. And during the time they walk, they fall down apparently like 900 times on average. I think it says 900 times a baby will fall while it's learning to walk. Obviously, this is mostly fine for the baby since they're very close to the ground. And their bones are also very, very flexible. But most importantly, they're experiencing cortisol the whole time. Cortisol is actually a hormone that is directly related to growth. You can't really grow without cortisol. So if you're feeling anxiety and stress right now, understand that you can either be negative about this, or you can understand that this is a growth opportunity where you can figure out why you feel cortisol in the first place and figure out what you did to cause yourself to feel this way. That's a very interesting extrapolation, Dr. Mack. But yeah, it's good to push babies down when they're learning to swim, actually, because it incentivizes them to learn to swim faster. So yeah, jokes aside, people who dunk babies underwater, they often teach them to swim that way. But yeah, anyway, if you don't understand something, you do have to actually begin to look for sources of information that are not obvious, they're not superficial. Everything on the superficial is just going to be the shortest distance to information. And because it's the shortest distance to information, it's not going to be the complete picture. An industry known as the media makes this their business model. They make information as bite-sized as possible, and they feed it to people so they feel like they're informed. But they're not really informed. They're just superficially informed. I hope this makes sense to you guys. Well, see, I agree. I agree. It is, but it actually can be simplified. As far as like human conditions, I think when it comes to self-analysis, you just have to really understand, I think the first one, like the hormone called cortisol, and become aware of when you're feeling it. Because when the market takes a downturn, most of the time, what you're looking on the price chart is just an aggregation of neurochemistry. Like, it's just epinephrine, which is adrenaline, and cortisol. So people feel stress and fear. Does that make sense? They feel stress and fear. And effectively speaking, because that's contagious among humans, humans use price charts as information signals between each other. Does that make sense? The same way that humans use facial expressions as information signals between each other, any medium can become the surrogate for a facial expression. So if the price chart looks like a whole bunch of people with a scared facial expression, that emotion can transfer into you. Yeah, and good morning, Cynical. And see, you're completely correct that as far as like neurochemistry at the bleeding edge of it, there is so much we don't understand. But I would say that there's about 6 or 7 neurotransmitters that if you become aware of them and how they affect you, you can at least gain self-awareness, and then you can gain self-awareness and then use that to learn something about yourself and how you can possibly change to become better. So I'm just saying that cortisol as a hormone it correlates with a lot of growth, meaning when we're in the childlike stage, we go through cortisol all the time for neurogenesis, and we also go through it for getting familiar with things. So when you're learning how to say stuff and do stuff for the first time as a child, you always feel tense when you're doing it. Like, you might have had a parent, introduce you to a stranger and they tell you to shake their hand, and you've never been given a handshake before, and you're just like extending your arm and you don't know what you're doing, and they're shaking your hand and it feels extremely foreign to you. And I don't know if you remember this happening to you, but when this was happening to you, your body was like dousing with cortisol. You were drenched with cortisol. You might have been in a sweat about this because you have no idea what you're doing or why you're doing it or whether you're doing it correct or what you're doing at all. And eventually, you just give out so many handshakes that you stop feeling cortisol about it. Yeah. Oh, damn it. Okay. All right, yeah, I'm not going to make it. Maybe I can, Zonic. Okay, can I get a screen share right now? We'll see if I can make this happen in 90 seconds. Thank you, Zonic. I appreciate that. You guys know I can tangent about human nature a bunch. Okay, do you guys see my screen on all aspects? Do you guys see it on Discord? Do you guys see it on Twitter? Okay, let's actually swap in, and I'm going to find 3 ohm, and I'm just going to swap 300 of it for Pyre Phantom. I am, in fact, doing this on a... Oh, my goodness. Come on, come on, come on. I'm literally waiting on MetaMask. Well, I guess it's bullish that I'm seeing the price change this much in the ultimate minute. Transaction submitted, let's see. Okay, I got 36 seconds. 36 seconds. I am seeing an error on the 24-hour high-low. I have literally no idea how much. Okay, I got 23 seconds with the pending transaction. Am I going to make it in time? Okay, let's see. I got 13 seconds. Stake, thankfully seems to move faster than swap. If only MetaMask will let me 3 seconds, 2 seconds, 1 second. It's going to block me. It's going to give me usurping. Let's see what happens. Only if I can sneak in. Only if I can sneak in before the epoch transpires. And I have no idea. We got 283,000. Is it still going up? I have no idea. 0.63. We now have 100,000 and exiting. So I have no idea. No, I guess I must have missed it. And if I missed it, yeah, if I missed it, that means that I just got guarded by the usurping guard. Oh well. Oh well. Yes, yes, yes. Pyre BNB, amazing, amazing, amazing. Well done, well done. Yeah. Well, I guess that means the transaction failed. I guess we can take a look at what that looks like. Clearly now there's a usurping guard. There you go. Electronic is legitimately playing on 3 different chains. That's fucking crazy. So yeah, Electronic is probably, yeah, contract, look at that, failed. Only on 2 today, yeah. I get it because Phantom is the one that's so popular it becomes congested. Yeah, it makes perfect sense, to be honest. Okay, well, there you guys saw, Nokia 9110. There you guys saw what it looks like when you stake with the usurping guard. The contract interaction just fails. Guys, if you could post those screenshots as X comments, and by the way, any screenshot of your IWV reward, if you post that as a tweet and you tag the Pyreswap account in that tweet, we will retweet every single one of them. Every single one of those will get retweeted. So if you are trying to grow your Twitter following, you will get retweeted by a 10,000 follower account by posting those on Twitter. Yep, we will retweet every single one of them. Hope that makes sense. Anyways, I suppose you can. I guess the only thing to do now is I guess I'll just wait. I'm not even gonna swap back. I'm just gonna hold Pyre Phantom. I guess you can. Okay, so later on today, we will actually be changing our powered by Pocket badge. The 0.5% staking tax is only on Genesis pools. Yeah, there's no tax on IWV. We're only taxing an LP. There's a 1% tax on meeting, and there's a 0.5% tax on Genesis pools. There's no tax on IBV. Oh yeah, but the 0.5 is what you're restaking. It's not off the whole. Does that make sense? Yeah, the 0.5 is off the restaking. So if you get 1% and then you compound that back in, you're only getting taxed 0.5% of that 1%. So you're getting taxed like a microdust. So it's not equal there. Does that make sense? It's only we're not taxing you 0.5 on the total amount deposited. We're taking you on the new amount deposited. Yep. And you make 10 cents. Correct. If you stake $100 in the IWV and you take $1 as in cans as 1% yield, if you take that dollar and you compound it back in, you will pay a nickel in taxes. Does that make sense? Sorry, not a nickel. You'll make half a penny in taxes. You'll pay half a penny in taxes. Yeah, if you put $10 in Genesis and you got yep, exactly. Yes, but Alessio, that tax is not on displayed, not on displayed earnings. Like that is actually more like a parallel minting. Yeah. Oh no, you can. No, yeah. See, it totally could be. Yeah. Like so, let's say you have $100 of Pyre Phantom LP, and it gives you like I don't know $1 of Pyre Phantom every single 6 hours or whatever, right? Or it gives you $1 every 6 hours. If you take that dollar, yeah. Okay, well, let's see. Well, it shouldn't in the UI. Yeah. Yeah, because they're not your rewards. Oh, yeah, I appreciate that. Okay, so Zonic says it's not worth it to break LP to play the IWV. That's his opinion. I'm assuming that's under certain context. I would say that the right way to go about it, and I agree that breaking LP doesn't make sense. I would say that the right way to go about it is literally claiming your Genesis rewards, playing the IWV with that, and then recompounding with those. Like, I agree that breaking LP to do it does not make sense. I wouldn't actually withdraw from Genesis to play the IWV. I'm just talking about claiming your rewards from Genesis to play the IWV. Because if you're gonna claim all of that, it's not necessarily the most profitable to be the biggest whale in the Incarnation Witch Vault. Yeah, and arguably, like, that's, if you want to try that out, that's fine. Maybe on B&B and Avalanche, that makes sense. But like, there isn't always upside to being the biggest bag. Does that make sense? Like, maybe you can like make the most gain for your time, but also if too many people are playing with large bags, they all end up crushing each other's real yield. So there's that. So I think what Zonic's answer is saying, that it doesn't make sense to break LP because then you're paying the staking tax again. That was never really our intention to if you want to do that, you can. But yeah, I agree. Yeah, I would say just play with the emissions you're getting and then compound those back in with a little bit of bonus from the IWV. I hope that makes sense to you guys. So basically the discussion in Discord is whether or not, if you're in the Genesis pools, you should withdraw your liquidity, convert it all into Pyre Phantom, use all that Pyre Phantom to play the Incarnation Witch Vault, then take your then compound the real yield back and distribute or deploy it back as liquidity. And apparently the consensus in the chat is that it's not worth it because you pay the staking tax on the whole amount. I didn't think people were doing this. I would say that it's better to just play with the emissions you're getting, add bonus on top of that, and then compound that back into liquidity. Yeah, there's also a swap fee. And then, of course, there's slippage as well. Yes, and see, it's meant to be variable and consistent at the same time. If that makes sense? Yeah. Yeah, like, see, you'll notice that the best part about the IWV is that it does, in fact, it does in fact spike on more volatile market days. So when we talk about there being upsides to red candles, on red candle days for the whole market, that actually makes the yield of the incantation witch vault go up above average. And that might not necessarily be clear because you're watching the dollar price of everything go down. But generally speaking, on market panic days, the incantation witch vault gets more lucrative because the incantation witch vault is a way to get horizontal profits to offset vertical losses, like on any red candle day. Yes, exactly that. See, exactly that. More volume in any direction means more incants. That's completely correct. I hope that makes sense to you guys. It looks like Electronic is completely feeding himself from the incantation witch vault. He is in fact able to completely feed himself. Well, Alessio, I would say that's arguably, first of all, I would say that might actually even be higher than it was on a horizontal day, if that makes sense. Yeah. And don't worry, there's always chance for more volatility. Yeah. And Alessio, what you don't understand, that 24-hour volume in that dollar price, that is also penalized by the red candles. So like that 24-hour volume, that could be $30,000 of volume on a green candle day. Does that make sense? Because they price volume in the dollar, and if the price of all the tokens in compared to the dollar are changing drastically, then you have to understand that volume day per day is not exactly objective. Does that make sense to you guys? Yeah, and Javery is also providing a good point that the dollar is dumping. Yeah, so arguably, the dollar dumping would also imply that this should be worth more in dollars. So you have a lot of variables here to consider. But yeah, so keep in mind that on a red candle day where the 24-hour volume shows 17,000, that could be the exact same amount of volume as $30,000 of volume on a green candle day. Because on a green candle day, you're still looking at everything with respect to the dollar. And it could, in fact, be the same amount of tokens getting traded, if that makes sense. But it just so happens to have a smaller dollar amount on a red candle day. I hope that makes sense. The way volume is calculated on the way volume is calculated in DeFi, I think, is generally incredibly inaccurate. And I'm actually going to go to the whiteboard for this. I will go to the whiteboard for this to kind of explain this math. Because I'm assuming you guys are looking at Deck Screener, correct? You guys are looking at Deck Screener? Let's see, I'm gonna wait for my producer to by the way, even with this whiteboard, I think it looks decently and it's not fading me out. I think if I tilt it this way, even better. So first of all, we're going to talk about what the constant product formula, which is x, y equals k. I'm going to write cartoonishly big, and I'm also going to make sure that this is visible on the screen. So that's very visible. Okay, so now I know that it's pretty much this big to write. So x, y equals k. Now this really means that quantity token A, I guess I'll just write token X, times quantity token Y equals, and I'm going to make this dot larger so they can see that's multiplication. I'll make that an X. Equals K, which is in fact this constant product. And I'll say that's a constant product K. And LP tokens necessarily aren't exactly set to the value of constant product. This is something that we plan on fixing later phases of Pyreswap. But for right now, I want you to understand that LP tokens are quantified in the square root of this number, and they update themselves whenever liquidity is withdrawn or deployed. And for some reason, they also, I guess, they change their percentages. They change their math based on whether or not you are, what percentage of the pool you are. I'm not going to dissect in all of that. But the fact of the matter is, when I appreciate your bullishness, Avery, and yes, we are also completely cold-blooded here. We are not losing our mind. There are no pink Wojaks in our general chat. And by the way, pink Wojaks are always a buy signal. Remember that, okay? I need a pink Wojak t-shirt, you know what I mean? That's what I fucking need. Yeah, Javery, I agree. Like, literally, Javery, if we can, like, the goal is we're just going to scale a bunch of people who are just not going to just constantly piss their pants at every single, you guys get what I'm saying. So we have the quantity token A and the quantity token Y. Now, I want you guys to understand something, that when they're looking at volume on a website like Dex Screener, what they're doing is they are measuring this in $X or dollar value of Y. Does that make sense? Like $X transferred or dollar Y transferred. Does that make sense? So whenever thank you, Electronic. Yeah, always a good sign to see Lockheed Martin pumping. I do have, I should have a Lockheed Martin shirt, but I'll tell you this. Lockheed Martin is very, very not cool about you using their logo on things. I learned this personally very recently. Okay, Javery, have a great rest of your day, and thank you so much for coming to the Pyreswap show. So they measure in dollar value X or dollar value Y. Now, first of all, the reason dollar value X and dollar value Y is not necessarily always accurate is because when we talk about swap fees as a percentage of volume, your swap fees are actually collected in K. They're not collected in dollar value X and dollar value Y. So I'll explain to you something that you can see kind of regularly, especially on Binance Smart Chain. Sometimes a bot will make like an arbitrage bot will make a miscalculation and do a large price impact transaction. And this large price impact transaction often rings through at something like $30,000. And it'll be like they're swapping on Pyreswap, and it'll be a $30,000 transaction, and no one knows why they're doing this. And what they'll do is they'll do like a $30,000 buy of like Pyre-BNB. I remember seeing this for D-Share, and then they'll immediately do a $30,000 sell. Yeah, $30,000 buy with BNB. Then immediately after, I don't know if you can see this, they will immediately sell. I'll write this in red. I'll write this in. Then they'll do a $30,000 sell, meaning they're just going to sell back immediately. Sell the inverse. Then they do an immediate sell of the inverse. Does that make sense to you guys? So they literally will do a $30,000 buy of Pyre-BNB with BNB. At least that's what it's measured at the peak of price impact. And they'll immediately swap it and do the reverse. Does that make sense? And literally, Dex Screener will ring this in up here at the top. They will now say that like volume equals $60,000. Does that make sense? They will literally bring this in as $60,000 of volume. Does that make sense to you guys? Like they don't know how to think about like what Pyre-BNB is at the price of BNB. They don't think about that. They don't think about all of these other moving parts. They just simplify into the dollar, which by the way, I kind of expect them to. And they basically just ring it in that like, hey, there was $30,000 this way and there was $30,000 that way. So therefore, this looks like $60,000 of volume, and therefore there are high swap fees. But swap fees are not measured. But what is this $60,000 in again? Remember the units I defined before. this dollar is actually dollar X and dollar Y. Again, swap fees are not collected in X or Y in a Uniswap v2 format. Does that make sense? Swap fees are not collected in dollar X or dollar Y. Swap fees are collected in K. And the fact of the matter is, because you have $60,000 going this way, like if we describe it that, like, let's say there was 10 to 1 through here. Let me erase this again. Let's say Pyreswap is maybe like 0.10 right now, 0.10. I have no idea what it is, maybe 0.05. I'm going to say it's 0.10 because that was a recent price of it. So if Pyreswap equals 0.1 BNB, and therefore we have, let's say we have, let's assume that this number here is 1 BNB to 10 Pyreswap. So if they swap 1 BNB, so 1 BNB is swapped to 10 Pyreswap. Effectively speaking, this is, as far as like a constant product goes, this is a, the K value is the actual volume getting done. Does that make sense? It's like the K value being changed is what's happening. So then you have 10 Pyreswap swapping back to 1 BNB, even though the total volume in X plus dollar Y would still show you that it's actually 2 BNB getting swapped. As far as the swap fees goes, remember, you're only collecting a percentage of the LP as a whole that's growing, which means that whatever the ratio of this is in the final state, that's what the swap fee is. So when $60,000 goes through here, it changes the ratio of all of the tokens. Does that make sense? So literally, with 1 BNB going here for 10 Pyreswap, and let's say that there was a total of like 100 in liquidity against 10, something like this. If we say there was like 100 against 10 in liquidity, if we have 10 Pyreswap going through here, we're ending up with 1 BNB to 10 Pyreswap. This brings us to a scenario where we have 9 to 110, and then from 10 Pyreswap to 1 BNB, we are now going back. Let's see, hang on. They're adding 1 BNB to remove. So we're now having 11 to 90 in liquidity remaining. And then if we bring 10 Pyreswap back for 1, we're now coming back to 100 to 1. Does that make sense? Do you guys understand how this works? So if we have this transaction, 1 BNB for 10 Pyreswap, meaning we're changing this 100 to 10 ratio, and I should make this is actually 90 to 11. And then we swap it back, and it becomes 100 to 1 again, or sorry, 100 to 10. My sincere apologies. We have effectively arrived back at the ratio of this. Now, the only thing that actually has happened as far as like the swap fee goes is that this 100 to 10 ratio, if we were to multiply this and we were to say it's at 1,000, and let's say we're not going to square root it right now, that 1,000, let's say if we're talking about like 100 times 10 equaling 1,000. Well, let's say if we have a 3% swap fee, that 1,000 is now 1,006. So the 1,000 has now become 1,006. Does anyone understand why 1,000 has become 1,006? It's because you're talking about a 0.3% swap fee. Does that make sense? So 0.3% of 1,000 is 3. If you're getting it twice, you've gone from 1,000 to 1,006. Now this is arguably not a bad gain. This is arguably not a bad gain, especially because we're considering that the entirety of liquidity has been affected, right? Does that make sense? I might be calculating that a bit wrong, but arguably speaking, if you're pegging the meter with like 60,000, that would effectively be what happens. But if you're running volume on the entire liquidity pair and there's a total amount of 1,000, then you're bringing 1,000 to 1,006. The swap fee is going to be from this 6. In fact, what feeds the incantation is going to be half of this 6, so it's going to be 3. I hope that makes sense. But that's why we're able to call this real yield. Because we are, in fact, creating consistent 1% and higher yields on the epoch, by the way. So these are 4% daily yields that are real yields consistently. Just pointing that out. Does that make sense for the people who are watching me? And yeah, do I have Twitter comments? I'm looking at a whole bunch of notifications. Gotcha. Okay. That was how it happened yesterday, though. Yeah. I mean, did you launch it with Restream? Oh, we'll talk about it later. Okay. Yeah. So if there's no live chat available on Twitter, it's because we kind of initiated this differently than we did yesterday. Okay. Anyways, so $X and $Y. Do you guys understand why that's not like a clear indication of volume? Or rather, it's like that indication of volume is misleading. Does that make sense? Like, it isn't clear that like $X plus $Y would create that many swap fees, because you're not talking about $60,000 and then saying, oh, well, our swap fees, live chat is available. Okay, I don't have the ability to see it, but I guess it doesn't matter. The swap fees are not going to be a percentage of the $X plus $Y, because they just calculated by $X and $Y. Like, they're looking at the dollar and looking at the dollar value at the time of transaction, and they're just saving that as data. And listen, I don't want to, besmirch anyone's business model, but I want everybody here to realize something, okay? If you're getting a dashboard for free, meaning there is no social cost to the running of this dashboard, and this is a platform that runs advertisements, please keep in mind that providing you with high integrity data is not their business model. Their business model is to tell you what you need to feel to be informed, while also selling your eyeballs to advertisers. Does that make sense? This is how the media works. Does that make sense to you guys? When you watch media, they're not in the business of making you informed. They're in the business of getting what they want from you. Does that make sense? So if you're watching a dashboard, maybe not a dashboard, maybe I should say a price charting website. If you're watching a price charting website and you have access to this price charting website for free, don't expect that price charting website to actually owe you data integrity, because data integrity is not their business model. Their business model is selling your eyeballs to advertisers. Am I making that clear? Does anybody have any questions about what I'm saying? In finance, you would never look at just one source of data. You have to corroborate data from multiple sources to find out the truth. Because in finance, if you really understand finance, you understand these sayings like the market is always wrong, but it's never wrong. Or the market's never correct, but it's always correcting. And it's kind of paradoxical in nature. But like, again, market data is not so much objective fact as much as it is a snapshot of aggregated opinions. Just because you aggregate opinions, it does not turn it into objective fact. You might say that's, empiricism, but that's really just the empiricism of a collective opinion at the time. Anyways, do you guys have any questions about volume and how volume, as it's displayed on price charting websites, can be misleading, especially when it comes to DEXs? I did some of the math on there wrong, but only I think the fact that I used the entire LP token amount as opposed to like just what the transaction was. The $60,000 did not have any real bearing to 10 Pyre being equal to 1 Pyre. I was just using an example. Those are two different examples of two different scenarios. And I will rotate this out of the scene. Well, anyways, this right here is normally around the time slot where we would end the Pyreswap. So I can sit down if it makes it easier for you to frame me in. Does anyone have any questions? By the way, we're all going to make it. We're all going to make it. Like, if you feel tense right now, I want you to understand that there's nobody that you are modeling after or emulating that never felt that feeling in the markets. Like, if you feel nauseated right now, you need to understand that Ray Dalio, when he was much younger, of course, also would feel nauseated by price charts. And George Soros and Charlie Munger and Martin Zweig, it doesn't matter. Like, it doesn't matter who you're talking about. Warren Buffett. I wish I literally had more of those names on the top of my head. They're probably right behind me too. Well, I got Ray Dalio here, but yeah, like every single one of them has felt that nausea. Like, they all felt that nausea, and what they did is they just chose to make it a growth opportunity, and they chose not to panic about it, and they chose to separate themselves from the tribe so they could become tribe leaders and not tribe followers. I hope this episode of the Pyreswap Show has been nothing less than educational. And I want to thank you guys for taking the time out of your day to join us as we continue to save DeFi. And if there's no further questions, we'll be signing off. Should I do a little salute? Yeah, we'll do a little hand salute. Thank you guys so much.